the Austin Community Design and Development Center. Like Michael mentioned, we are a small nonprofit that has been around for about 12 years now. And we specialize on a lot of community planning, and also there's been a lot of focus on working around affordable housing issues and other community initiatives. In fact, one of the reasons why ACDDC started 12 years ago was to provide assistance to low-income community development corporations in provide green building into low-income residences and homes and multifamily buildings. There was a gap there. There was a niche of a need. A lot of the development corporations that were doing affordable housing, they weren't really incorporating green building strategies. So that's one of the reasons why ACDDC kind of started. And we have definitely kept working with a lot of multifamily developers. We work a lot with foundation communities who have, as you guys probably know, a lot of multifamily buildings around town that is specifically focused on low-income, income-restricted households, which means that you have to have a certain income to be able to live there. However, there's a lot of stigma about low-income housing and all those things. And if you go to one of the foundation communities sites, you'll see that it's impeccable. Space not only provides housing, but it also provides some other services that are needed for the community. I believe there's a little bit of childcare and other programming that really help low-income communities be able to keep moving, right? So we've done a lot of architectural work. Our nonprofit has architects and planners. It's not, I say our organization, it's kind of small. It's actually myself, I'm a planner, and then the executive director, Nicole Jocelyn, she's an architect and planner, also CRP student, alum. And so we're able to kind of work on the architectural side, but also on the planning side. So we've worked a lot with community development corporations, like Michael mentioned. We work a lot with the Blackland CDC. That is located in the Blackland neighborhood, really close to here, to UT. We also work a lot with the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation, that it's around the Guadalupe neighborhood over in the Rosewood area. And with them, we work on designing some of their housing for affordable housing services through the Alley Flat Initiative, which is basically helping these organizations build an accessory dwelling unit that participates in the city's smart housing program. I mean, obviously through these organizations, they're gonna be permanent forever because that's their mission. But when we work with other private homeowners, we make sure to offer them the possibility of participating in the smart housing program with the city of Austin, which gives you some kind of upfront cost savings while developing this structure. And in exchange, you just agree to rent the newly developed house to an income-restricted household, 80% median family income or below, for 5 years. So that's kind of one of the programs that we have, one of the main programs that we've had for the last, since its existence. And actually, we have a lot of connections with UT, CRP specifically. The Alley Flat Initiative started out as a collaboration between the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation, the Center for Sustainable Development, and ACDDC. So there was a lot of, initially there was a lot of help from students, students helping in the design, and it kind of turned into something that ACDDC managed like daily and working with clients and all those things. And we have definitely opportunities also for students to be able to engage in some of those projects. So, so lately, and what I'm going to talk about, the topic of the conversation is design matters. I want to talk a little bit more about some shifts or some new ways that we've started to think and to position our organization lately. We've realized that architectural assistance, it's something that is needed, and that a lot of people who are working towards affordable housing, working in communities need. But we are also seeing that a lot of architectural firms that are around, they have started to do all this work pro bono and started to help a lot of the organizations that we initially worked with. So a lot of that gap is kind of being filled, and it has been obviously difficult for a nonprofit to try to compete with all these other bigger firms and architectural organizations that definitely have a bigger capacity. So while we still engage and work with a lot of our partners, we've also started thinking about, all right, what is it that it's needed in the communities, right? Where else is there a gap that is not being filled right now, specifically for lower income communities who in many instances are in need of a lot of changes, but again, don't have the capacity or the expertise to be able to face those challenges and those needs. So we're starting to talk about positioning our organization as this kind of middle entity between the community and those other resources that they might need. Working together with the community, understanding from their own perspective what are the main challenges that they're facing, and then going from there and starting a collaborative, very much place-based process that will provide either a vision, a planning document to then move forward with, again, whatever it is that the community feels are the main needs and challenges for them. So what I'm gonna do today, the plan that I have for this talk, is I am going to share 2 projects that we're currently working on right now that are kind of, that really it's an example of everything I've just said, positioning our organization in a way that really serves the community, that people feel welcome and want to engage with us and share their needs. And then we go on with them and complete whatever project we need to do. And I'm also going to share 2 other examples that are out there nationwide. So there's a lot of organizations nationwide that are doing this type of work. And I think one of the things to think about as planners or as architects, designers, whatever you are, or however you identify, is what is your role in trying to help communities, right? How can you make the most impact? And then just go from there, right? So I'm gonna start talking about the Montopolis community. So for about a year now, 10 months to a year, we have been working a lot in the Montopolis neighborhood. This is actually the final report that we just completed about 3 days ago. And it will be available on our website, so I can send out an email to the CRP listserv whenever the link has been linked, and you guys are free to see it. So basically, the Montopolis neighborhood, I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. It's located southeast of downtown Austin, and it's been an area that has been isolated for a really long time, or actually the people who live there have felt a lot of isolation. There's a lot of low-income residents living there. A lot of them are Hispanic, and they've just felt a big disconnect between their community and the rest of Austin since historically. It's just been like that for a long time. So, however, if you guys look the location of Montopolis on a map, you'll see that it's actually, and because the city is growing so rapidly, it's actually not that far away anymore from downtown Austin. And just as is happening in many other neighborhoods that I'm sure you're familiar with, there's a lot of pressure for development in this area. So you can see or start seeing kind of changes happening. A lot of older homes are just being bulldozed. There's new construction coming in. The land price, it's kind of more affordable there. It's still, not super affordable, but compared to other areas in Austin, it's definitely cheaper. So there's a lot happening, and there's a lot of worry from the neighbors about the changes that are to come and what those changes will mean to them. As you guys know, this happened in all of East Austin, or has been happening for a really long time. So they're definitely aware of the wave of gentrification that it's going, and they know that they're kind of seen as the next frontier for gentrification. So the Urban Land Institute recently, or last year, created a report talking about gentrification and impacts on low-income communities, and they looked at 3 different cities, and one of them was Austin, and they actually focused in the Montopolis neighborhood as this new frontier for gentrification, where things are changing rapidly. However, there's still time to do something about it. So after that report came out, which was financed by JP Chase, which now they're trying to do some good, I guess. So they actually contacted GMDC, the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation, because GMDC has been so successful in being able to help people who have lived in the Guadalupe neighborhood, who have lived there for generations. They have helped them stay in place through their affordable housing services. They have community land trust, they have homes, single family homes for ownership, they have a lot of rentals. So they've been very successful for 30 years, I think they've been around, to help families stay and to maintain kind of a diverse socioeconomic within the neighborhood. So there's not that many other community development corporations around Austin. There's also Blackland, but as you probably know, all these organizations are very focused in particular neighborhoods, obviously. And so JP Chase contacted GMDC. They were like, hey, we just made this report. We know that you guys work in the Guadalupe neighborhood. However, we know that Montopolis is going through some changes. Would you guys be interested in kind of exploring what are the opportunities for either an organization like GMDC or any other community development corporation to help people kind of diminish or mitigate the pressures of being displaced over there? So GMDC was agreed to it, and then they contacted us, again, since we're also planners, to kind of help them come up with some sort of report that would look at what are the options, what are the possibilities and opportunities for a housing provider to be able to expand their services over to Montopolis. So we were excited about it. We actually worked with one CRP student. I think she graduated already, but she also helped throughout the process of this report. And basically, we worked a lot with community leaders. That's kind of the first thing that we did after we got this task. We met with the community leaders in the area. There's a lot of community leaders right now in Montopolis, and we explained kind of what we were thinking about doing. And everyone seemed enthusiastic, everyone seemed to be on board, and I think the most important part in that, at that moment, was to really convey the fact that our job was to help them alongside any efforts that they were already doing in the neighborhood, right? We're not coming in as someone who's trying to get above whatever's happening. We actually wanted to get together with them to tell them what was happening, the intentions of GMDC, potentially expanding their housing services, but also being able and available to help them if they wanted to create a Montopolis Community Development Corporation to pass along whatever work, onto them. So that was something initially that we did, and that I think is very important as planners and especially people who want to work collaboratively with the community. So we did that, and then we kind of started a process of just community engagement, a lot of community meetings, to kind of learn what were the main challenges and obstacles related to affordable housing, but that also went beyond affordable housing. So basically, the report came out with 6 different recommendations, and I'm going to talk about 2 of them that are already moving forward. So one of them was to look into partnering with some community institutions that were already there, partnering with them with an organization like GMDC to be able to build more affordable housing in their properties. So the institutions that we were referring to were churches. A lot of them have big parcels of just big parcels. And there's a lot of examples throughout the country of collaborations or partnerships between community development corporations who offer affordable housing and these type of institutions that, again, have a lot of land and kind of their mission go hand in hand as well. So we, for the Montopolis neighborhood, we weren't able to partner with a church, but there is a Montessori School in Montopolis, south of Riverside, that has been in the neighborhood for a really long time. They really serve the lower income communities, and they actually know the executive director of GMDC because he would take his kids over to the Montopolis, Escuela Montessori of Montopolis when they were growing up. So he kind of approached them and talked about a potential partnership. And so that has been moving along. And what's coming out of that is that the Montessori School is really in need of a lot of repair. It's a really old building. So they really want a new building, a new school that will keep serving the kids in the community. And because they are on the Riverside corridor, they get offers just every day, just from developers of like millions of dollars to just buy them out. And they really don't want to leave. They want to stay. They want to serve the kids in the community. So they're right now in conversations and potential partnership that will develop. GMDC has agreed to basically rebuild the school and build affordable housing just on top of the school. So the school would also be beneficial for whoever residents are living in this building. There will be a playground in the back of the building, and at the end of the lot, there's going to be some space for elderly cottages. So the idea is to have also seniors there that can kind of interact with the kids in the same playground. So that's one of the things that is moving forward, and everyone's very excited about that. The other thing that came out that it's moving forward is one of the main things that we heard from residents in the community meetings was that people didn't know about the resources that were out there available. People don't know about the home repair program. People don't know, and this was really the trigger that kind of made us like light our little idea of we need to do something about this. Some seniors in the community just don't know that there is a homestead exemption for seniors. And property taxes is definitely one of the biggest problems and issues in people being able to stay. And we want to make sure that people who are going to leave, they're going to sell their homes, they're actually doing it because that's the option that they want to choose, not that that's the only option. We want them to know that there's other options available. So after hearing about the homestead exemption, we also started hearing about many other things that people don't know about. So from the residents came up the idea like, hey, it would be awesome to have some sort of community resource center where people can go to and kind of ask and talk about the issues that they might have, and that then we can have information of where to find those type of things. So after this report was done, ACDDC, we were like, oh, this is exactly the type of thing that we want to help and the type of thing that we see a gap right now. Again, communities have specific needs based on the circumstances that they're in, and we as a nonprofit, and because we have connections with the university and with other stakeholders, we know of all these other services that are out there that are actually made to help the lower income communities. So we have started a process with Montopolis residents, and I have a cute picture to show that. So we started a process of a steering committee with Montopolis residents who are interested in moving this idea forward. They're very interested in having a space where they feel welcome and that they can ask simple questions about code enforcement, where they can ask about, hey, how can we make better the crosswalk, or how can we could we even have speed bumps? Like, there's all these issues, and there's all these programs from the city departments, including the neighborhood partnering program. There's Habitat for Humanity has a ton of different programs to help with home repairs specifically for lower income. So we have been meeting with these residents, and these are a few. We have a few more that were in the picture. We've been meeting with them weekly to kind of talk about what are the main needs of the neighborhood, and then make a list of, all right, these are all the city departments that we know that offer this type of services, or these are all the other organizations that we know that offer this type of things. And so this picture was taken on Tuesday, where there was the National Night Out, which is an event that is put together nationally, and it's pretty much a way for, I think it's has to do with safety. It's a way for police to connect better with neighborhoods. And so what we did, what the team did, was took advantage of this event that was already happening and said, all right, well, wouldn't it be cool if we just invite a bunch of the organizations, city departments, and others who we want to learn more from, invite them over to National Night Out, because it's kind of a setup where every organization comes and you have information, you hand out flyers about services, etc. They were like, yeah, it would be great to have all these organizations here, and then we learned from them. But more importantly than having a flyer, they really wanted to see faces. They wanted to see, who is it going to be there when I call? Who is it going to be there if I email? Is there going to be someone that I can talk to during this event and be like, what's your number? What is your email? If I need to contact you, will you be there? So that was very important to them. So we took advantage of this event and invited a bunch of city departments. We had around 10 stakeholders, including city departments and others, join, which was great for a Tuesday night. So it was very successful, and the residents were very, very happy and just very excited about the potential of this project. So kind of moving forward from this, what we're gonna do is, if you can see some posters behind us, what we did, ACDDC had a table, but we pretty much, it was kind of the table of the team. And we didn't have any sort of information about us or anything, but what we did was, we created these posters that had some prompts on them. They said, one of them said, the things I'm proud of Montopolis because blank. And then we had a lot of sticky notes and really asked people, and you can see that people have started writing things. We just wanted to the team really wanted to get information from the neighbors as to what things they liked, what things they don't like, what are the main challenges that they see. So we're gonna be using this information in the coming months to create another event in the community, to really focus on some of these issues that had been identified by the residents themselves, and kind of create another sort of event, like a block party, they've called it, where we kind of tackle whatever challenge it is that we're gonna be kind of working around. So again, kind of bringing attention into, wouldn't it be cool if we actually knew how to do these things? And so bringing all the neighbors together and kind of making them excited about something like this. So this has been very much specific to Montopolis because of the work that we were doing previously with GMDC. Like I said, this is something that came out of neighbors, the interest of neighbors, to do something like this. But we see this as something that can be applied in many other different neighborhoods. So we call it kind of a solution-driven resource center. And recently, we've also been partnering with Planet Texas 2050 because they're interested in this type of approach to community development and to assist communities, especially communities that are lower income. So we are partnering with them in trying to start a pilot of a program of what this resource center would look like, but with the idea of this, again, being able to be done in other areas of South Austin, other areas in Northeast Austin, places where it's needed. I mean, there's never enough, it's never bad to have a place that will actually connect you with the resources and the services that you need. So that's kind of one thing that it's moving forward, and again, came out of something that was purely brought up by the neighbors. So this is my first example. The other example that I wanted to talk about that we're involved with right now is in the Williamson Creek area, which is in South Austin. Is this? Yeah, this is correct. So that is Ben White over there, that little piece of street that you see here. This is Stasny, and then I believe this is South First. Oh, South First is right here. This must be Congress. And then 35 is all the way over here. So Williamson Creek is a very interesting space. They have been, the Williamson Creek has seen a lot of flooding in the last 10 years or so. In the last event, which happened in 2013, I believe, all this area flooded. And as you can see, there's some parcels here. This is a residential area. And during the last flood, more than 100 homes were affected by the flood. We started a process of a buyout of some of the parcels here. Up to date, I believe a little bit over 50 parcels have been bought from the city, and there's plans to start a phase 2 to start removing some of the neighbors who might be a danger or are too close to the floodplain. Actually, because of all the changes that are happening with the climate, the city, and I think probably nationally, they're changing all the floodplains. So now floodplain in Austin is going to look very differently, and it's going to have a lot of impacts in terms of development, what can be built, where, etc. So this is kind of what's happening in the central Williamson Creek area. And we have a community leader who actually lives in one of these houses there. Actually, her house is part of the buyout, and she decided not to leave her home. So she has been living there for a really, really long time, and she is a nature lover person, hiker, biker. She's an amazing leader. She's really a neighborhood leader. And she knows this creek from every little twist, every little turn. She knows this creek, all of it. So she approached us because she has been interested in showing people, not only people in Austin, but also people from her neighborhood, the potential of this area. This area here has is very mixed. There's a lot of low-income families. And there's also a lack of access to green spaces, to parks, to different amenities. It's very car dependent. So people really, it's very unsafe to be on your bike. There's a lot of issues in this space. And she can see this as an opportunity to create some sort of green belt for the Williamson Creek area. Again, with the new definition of the floodplain and the buyout, you're gonna have a lot of pieces of land that now are gonna belong to the city. Again, there's nothing really that can be built there. So she's starting to see this as a potential big park that will connect all of these different neighborhoods, that will provide, biking, will provide hiking, will provide just a green space, and all the things, again, that this community is lacking. So, and I have picture here of the area. It's really amazing, this space. You go there and you would never think that you are between South First and Congress. It's incredible. It really feels and looks like you're on the Greenbelt. So what we're doing with the team, what we've done is we've met with her, who is, like I said, she's a community organizer. She's the president of her neighborhood association. She's in a bunch of contact teams with the city. She's amazing. And she also knows other community leaders who are upstream from her and then downstream from her, who are also interested in making some sort of improvements to these other trails. And so we have met with all of these teams, which pretty much covers from Mopac all the way to, what are the falls that are close to the airport? McKinney Falls, yeah. So it's all this area. I mean, it's huge, and it's actually kind of overwhelming to think about planning for something that big. But what we've started doing is talking with all of the leaders, really coming up with a shared vision of what it is that people want to do, to start talking to neighbors and start then engaging and start a collaborative planning process, because it's not only enough that these community leaders really want to do this change and make this for the better of their community, which, I mean, I'm totally convinced that she and all the others really want to do this to make their community better. But we also are aware that we need to involve others, other people in the community in the conversation, other people who might not be as extrovert as she is, and that also might want to have something to add to the conversation. So right now what we're doing is we're having some initial meetings with the leaders, and we are hoping to early next year start a very big engagement process, which will include creek stumps, which is what the pictures that you have here. They're kind of dark, but basically what the community leader, which this is her over here, she will be doing creek stumps, which is basically to have people go to the creek and really learn about the creek. A lot of neighbors don't even know the existence of the creek and the potential that it has. So starting with that, we've also talked with some professors here at UT in the education department. There's a professor doing some really amazing work, and she's actually part of the Planet Texas team, doing some really amazing work on storytelling and creeks, and to help kids kind of learn through storytelling about their natural environment. And she specializes in creeks, which again was just perfect for this type of work that we're trying to do. So we're going to engage with a lot of different stakeholders. We're also we're thinking about also including local artists to help us through the arts, through photography, through different techniques, really try to make this process very holistic. And again, trying to have as many voices as possible in the process of really defining what this will look like, what are the main issues that this type of project is trying to overcome, and then from there, be able to have this plan that can go to implementation in the future. That is something that is still not even in the timeline right now. What we are really focusing on is being able to be that space, that third partner that really brings everyone together and creates a collective vision for the space. And then I have two other examples that I'm gonna briefly talk about, and actually, they actually come from this book called Resilience for All. The author, Barbara Brown Wilson, she actually is a CRP alum. She did finish her Ph.D. here in planning, but 2012 or something, back in the day. So she's now a professor, and she just wrote this book, which if you're interested in this topic that we're discussing today, I really encourage you to get it. It has a lot of different examples of this type of community planning. So And I'm going to briefly talk about two of them that come out of the book. So again, it's going to be a brief commenting through these case studies, so I'm sure that the library has them, has the book. So the first one that I'm going to talk about comes from Biloxi. And Biloxi was very impacted after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And a lot of the coastal properties were pretty much devastated. I think about 90% of the properties, from what I read, were just completely wiped out. So there was definitely a lot of need. I mean, after the hurricane, it's not just the physical devastation, but there's a lot that go with the trauma and everything that happens in the aftermath of a hurricane. But there was definitely a lot of need in terms of infrastructure and helping people be able to rebuild their homes, be able to just move forward. So there is an organization called the Gulf Coast Community Design Studio, which is also an extension of the University of Mississippi State. And they were interested in helping out the low-income communities in being able to rebuild. So the chapter is really interesting because it talks about the process of how this organization kind of positioned themselves to be able to help and not, you know, be any sort of impediment to the ongoing reconstruction efforts that were already happening. So one of the things that they did, especially the president or the director of this organization, was he just started going to the community meetings. That's it. Instead of going in and just saying, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, just went in and started listening. Started going to the organizations, to the places that people were already kind of going to, organizing around, and started listening to see how the expertise that they had as a planning, architect professionals that were also, again, linked to the university, how would their services be best situated in this very complex scenario? So he met another organization that in short is HOPE, Community Development Corporation or something like that. And he just started going into their meetings and kind of listening to see what was needed. He was able to talk to one of the leaders of this organization, and this other leader asked him, like, all right, what can you do? What can you do for us? And based on the meetings that he had been going to lately, he realized that there was a lot of response efforts that were being very hard to accomplish because after the hurricane, there's no street signs, there's nothing, there's a lot of volunteers coming by the thousands, and they just don't know where to go. So they had like a really, you know, a map that they had handmade to kind of show people where to go and all that. And so the director of this design center said, well, to start, I can make that better for you. I can help you with that map. So that was one of the initial projects that they helped them with. They created a map. They helped people who were coming to really situate themselves so that the recovery efforts could actually keep flowing. So that was one example of how they started, and as things kept changing, obviously, the recovery efforts kept on their way, conditions change and needs change. So they were very explicit and really trying to make an effort to be as fluid as possible. As the situation changed, as the needs change, so would the skills and expertise that they would bring would also change. So that is one example that I wanted to share with you. They have an amazing website, so just feel free to roam around. They have a lot of descriptions of different projects that they're doing, so it's very interesting. And then the last one that I wanted to talk about was Living Coolie, which is in Portland. This is a neighborhood in northeast Portland that has been known for being very diverse and also having a lot of low-income families. Back in 2009, the city started a process of creating eco-districts and identifying different areas where they would start in making better infrastructure, kind of green infrastructure, and bringing all these new things into the community. But the communities also knew that, and this is something that happens everywhere, and it's a topic in itself for a really good thesis, that there's a lot of fear from communities when thinking about improvements and how those improvements could potentially in the future push a lot of the lower income residents out. So when there was a lot of talk about having some eco districts around, a lot of the neighbors got together and started this coalition called Living Coolie, which basically protects the neighborhood and looks at any sort of development or planning process holistically, so that you're not just bringing improvements that could potentially move people out, but you're also creating other partnerships that will help those more susceptible populations be able to stay. So for example, they partner with Habitat for Humanity to be able to have areas designated for affordable housing, that they know as things keep improving and keep getting better, families that might need it can still be there forever, and that affordability in housing will be there forever. They've also started a lot of programs, like educational programs, to really teach the community leadership skills and have a sense of ownership over the things that are improving in the community. The more communities feel a sense of ownership of their space, of their community, the more they'll be engaged, the more they will look out for each other, and the more they will make sure that the things that are making the community better will also not become the triggers for gentrification in the future. So this is a very amazing example. Again, their website is very awesome. It has a lot of information. It has a lot of different projects that they've been involved with. And it really shows the importance of working alongside communities and making sure that the things that you as a planner want to do is something that goes hand in hand with whatever challenges they have. If you come in with a project as an outsider, as I'm sure you've learned in many of your classes, probabilities of it sticking, if it's something that really is not a priority in the community, are very low. But if you go in really trying to understand the context and really trying to understand the needs of the community, and from there develop together some sort of project that will be directly related to one of those challenges, then probabilities are that people are going to keep that going even after you're gone. So that is my last example. The one last thing I wanted to talk about was that we will be having our annual fundraiser coming up in early November. Registration is free for this event. We just have a suggested donation that if you're a student, it should be fine. You can come for free. But we're going to be talking about kind of the role of this type of community design centers in communities, in neighborhoods. And we are not only thinking about planning, but we're also thinking about place, health, and nature. So we also want to include health into the conversation, want to include sustainability, environmental impacts, and also obviously the foremost, most important actor here would be the community. So this event is happening on Friday, November 2nd. We're going to have a really awesome panel talking. So Barbara Brown Wilson, who's the author of the book, she's going to be in the event, and she's going to be the moderator. We're going to have the executive director of the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation that I was talking about in the beginning, GMDC. Mark Rogers will be there. We're going to have Lourdes Rodriguez, who is in the Dell Medical School. She is the director of the Center for Place-Based Initiatives, and she does a lot of work that is very much community-centered, place-based centered. And we're also going to have Amy Belair, who's with the Nature Conservancy. And all of these, in one way or another, we partner with them, we talk with them in everything that we do, in every work that we do. So again, kind of thinking about planning, thinking about these design centers as a space that will serve the communities that need it the most, and that will create things alongside with them rather than bringing something in that has not been identified before by the community. So that is all I have to say. So thank you, everyone. My email is right there. If you want to write me, or if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Questions?
Or if not, we can just talk more about other things. Yeah.
So this idea of improving the green belts in an area that's gentrifying, has there been any conversation about that being increasing?
Oh yeah, definitely. And actually, that chapter that I was just talking about, the Living Coolie, is one that we are going to be reading with the team. We definitely thought about this, and one of the things that we've thought about doing is to start conversations now. I mean, this is very early stages for this visioning process, but it would be a good idea to start conversations now with the Neighborhood Housing and Community Development Office from the city, and tell them about this project and what type of tools could we start to think about, or the community can start to think about, or that city department can start to think about, or new ones that should be developed to try to prevent a mass gentrification process because of this thing. So yeah, that's something that we talked about and touched upon during our last meeting, which was something very difficult for the community leaders to hear, because they're very focused in the trail. They really want to bring this improvement to their community. They know that their community is lacking on a lot of amenities and assets. So when we kind of said, all right, we're going to talk about something that you probably don't want to hear, but there could be some negative consequences to this, and we need to be aware of them. So I think in that way, our position as planners and a team who's wanting to help look at the whole project holistically, like that is the position that we feel comfortable playing, and then making the necessary connections and starting the necessary conversations with city departments. In this case, it's going to just be city departments, to make sure that there's some sort of plan to mitigate for anything that can happen. Yeah, but that's a good point. That's a good question. Yeah.
I was curious about the buyout process. So she decided not to sell her house. Is she allowed to sell to anyone other than the city once she decides to move or leave? Or?
I don't know, actually. I don't know what's the process. So that land would become undevelopable, really. So I don't know if you know anything about buyout properties, or the process. I know that she wouldn't be able to redevelop. The only way that they would allow her to redevelop is making the foundation 3 feet higher than the floodplain will show. So it's going to be like, it would be something crazy like 10 feet. I mean, it's just, so I don't know that she's allowed to sell to anyone else. If they sell to the city, it just becomes property land, which just probably would become just park. I mean, just parkland, so, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much for presenting. It sounds like there's a lot of really interesting things going on, and that there's excitement, which is good, at least among people who are living here, so good for you. I wanted to hear about the 6 recommendations you talked about in the first half of the presentation. It was something about Montopolis and affordable housing. Go through 6 recommendations, or if you have a minute,
Yeah.
could you talk
don't worry.
numbers
I don't remember word for word. So,
That's great.
yeah.
You know, that's
yeah.
somebody else does that. But if you could
Mhm.
explain more,
Yeah.
I'd be interested.
Yes. So the recommendations come out of the analysis that we completed, which had a combination of neighborhood meetings, so community engagement, focus groups, big at-large community meetings, that together with some spatial analysis and like just real estate analyses using TCAD data, a lot of GIS, and kind of seeing we also did a windshield housing analysis, which we also partner with CRP students who helped us go and walk around the entire neighborhood, around 1,700 houses, to do a visual assessment on housing conditions. So we use all of this information to create kind of the analysis, and basically what came out were what are the opportunities for home repairs? What are the opportunities for having a community land trust for ownership, or having a community land trust for rental homes? What are the opportunities for partnering with certain institutions? What parcels would be, what are the price of specific parcels, and how much housing would those parcels be able to hold? And then the other two recommendations that I talked about were the resource center was one of them, and then the other one was the Montessori School. So those type of recommendations. And I don't know them, I don't remember them by heart, but like I said, the report is gonna be put up on our website soon. So as soon as that is ready, we'll send a link through the CRP listserv so you guys can check it out. Because everything, all the methodology, everything is in the report. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll talk to you later about Williamson Street project. I actually live in that neighborhood, and
Oh.
there's some people that may want to be involved.
Oh, perfect.
Actually, I live one neighborhood south.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Sure.
Questions?
Well,
How long have you been at the design, the development corporation?
It's been about a year and a half or so. Mm-hmm.
Has your colleague been there longer?
Yeah, she's been there for 3 years.
Okay.
Mhm.
And is the whole development corporation like 3 years old, or like?
No, it's 12.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and you know, I think starting to talk this more about the classes. I mean, even 10 years ago, if you were going to improve an amenity in a lower moderate income neighborhood, park, green space, provide community center, whatever, it's like, the response was, well, it's about time. Now, you suggested, in the context of Austin or many other rapidly growing cities, it's, wait a minute. Because they see significant improvements in amenities as supercharging gentrification.
Yes. Yes.
So I guess, I mean, you know, and I think what's really, really interesting about your model is now if you're going to, you know, kind of make improvements in low and moderate income communities, it has to be combined with a kind of preservation, stabilization strategy. The two can't be separated. And,
Yeah.
I mean, the lessons that, you know, from some of these organizations.
Yeah.
I guess that's starting to kind of seep in, but I mean, what are your ideas about how that can be more kind of coherently joined, even from the perspective of the city? The city's going to do something, well, okay.
Yeah.
Immediately, what can we do to help preserve
Yeah.
sustainability?
Well, so one of the things that we've started doing because of this research center is reach out to different city departments that we think should be involved in this type of initiative to be able to have like a more direct connection with the communities, especially talking about Montopolis. And offices like Austin Energy, Code, Development Services, they all welcome, they don't know how to reach the community. They have all this information, all these programs, all these ways that people can get engaged, but they can't reach. So I think being able to have that channel open will help in, first, communities need to understand what's happening. And I think a lot of times they just don't know. Like the project just comes and it's like, oh, you know. But I think it's because the communication is just not there. And I don't think the city knows necessarily, and I don't know that their job is necessarily to be a very, good facilitator between the community, and, they should be able to connect with them. But I think they don't, it's interesting because they follow the directions of other powers that are not necessarily that linked to the community, but at the same time they're responding to the community. So it's a weird position of the city. But I think everyone that we've talked to about this type of collaboration welcomes it and actually wants it, because they understand that many of their offices or their departments are perceived as evil, when they're not. And I think if the communication was there, and again, there's also a lot of things to be done in terms of helping communities get organized and getting some leadership and kind of more of the people's development within communities, and understand that they do have a voice, even though they have been not heard for decades, I think once that medium channel has been declogged, I think it might be better. It's definitely a step forward, the right direction, I think. As communities feel that they're included in the process, they don't feel like they are the saying of, if you're not at the table, you're what's gonna get eaten for dinner, right? So I think that has to do with it too. So I don't know if it probably doesn't answer the question, but there's a lot of still figuring this out and thinking what's the best way to make sure that communities feel engaged and part of the process, rather than they being the recipients of the negative consequences of a process that they didn't even create in the first place. So.
Well, another sort of interesting part of the emerging issues. We just, Dr. Mueller and Wegman and Professor at the law school just produced this kind of citywide report on displacement.
Yeah.
They're trying to kind of identify neighborhoods that sort of were already gone, certain things could be done, and those that were, more vulnerable long term.
Yeah.
And they didn't come up with a wish list. They didn't say do these 25 things.
Yeah.
They said look at the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Understand conditions. And essentially what that's demanding is the city actually devote focus and resources at the kind of neighborhood level.
Yeah.
Which, it's great you guys are the city media area, but maybe the city should start thinking that way too.
Yep.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank
Guess we're
you.
finished.